Okay, what I'm going to do is make a video, hopefully a real quick video of replacing a timing belt and a counterbalance belt along with a crankshaft position sensor on a Mitsubishi Eclipse 2.4 liter. It's basically the Chrysler 2.4. This is a 2002 model, and they're all similar. So the very first thing you're going to be doing is, one, got to jack the front of the car up and take that tire off. And once you do that, you might as well, this shroud that's right here, I had bent it down, but this inner shroud that goes across has to come off. And my bolts were rusted. There's one there and one there. Them broke right off, so I'll have to figure something out putting it back on. And then there's some tabs like that one there that you use to pull, to hold it on. You pull them off. But one problem I had with this shield and why I just pushed it down was up in there, if you can see that, there's a bolt that you have to dismantle a lot of stuff to get access to that, and I bypassed that. Then the next step is take a jack. Once you have the car jacked up, a bottle jack, and put a board under between that and the oil pan, and lift it up till it's, firm against the oil pan and stuff. And what you're going to want to do is take a motor mount off, and to do that you have one bolt here which comes loose. I don't remember what size it was, like 17 millimeter, maybe less or something. And then there's two bolts that are holding the motor mount on. If you were to look down in it, when you pull them nuts off, you can see if it's positioned up against it or away, and you jack it up so them nuts are centered. And once you do that, you pull them nuts off and take this here nut right off, or bolt. This will pull right out. And I guess before you do that, you're going to have the, which people should be able to figure out, the overflowing away. That just basically slides in and out of there. So now you got your mount off, that bottom shroud off, and what you go ahead and do is now jack that motor up with that mount off, so you're going to have better access to everything. And we'll move on to the next step. Alright, next step is your power steering pump. You're going to take, there's two bolts there, that one and one below it, off. And, well, sorry, actually, apologize. There is, down in here is your adjustment for that tightened belt tensioner for the belt. And you're going to take the one bolt out and then turn this end nut and loosen the tension on that. And once you do that, pull them two bolts there out. That one's just sitting, don't matter. And then there's a bolt right there, and you're going to take that one off, and then you can literally pull the power steering pump away, get your belt off and stuff like that. And you're going to have your pulleys on yet, which is your pulley for the water pump. You'll be taking that off, which that is kind of a pain a little bit, but they're 10 millimeter bolts. Once that's setting down in there, sorry, it goes like this. Get them bolts out with the motor jacked up, it will come out of there, and you're going to need that out. And then your alternator isn't real bad, but you have, which is right here, a tensioner And you're going to take this one nut out, and then that tensioner's loosen that back so you can pull that let that alternator slide back, but it's still not going to slide back because there's a bolt way back in there. And I'm going to take this action camera and try to somehow get in there. Now, if you can't see that, you can't, but there's a nut, a bolt on the back side, which to access that, I found the easiest way is you take your arm and of course right down in there with a 3/8 drive ratchet, and I think that's 14 millimeter. You loosen that up and then you can pull your timing belt back, and then you can get that belt off, which is this one here. The next step, well, you got the power steering pump off, them belts are off. You have to take your timing chain, upper timing chain cover off, which there's just 4 bolts holding that on. That pops right off. And big one will be, next step will be down under the car, taking this off, the lower timing chain cover. Well, and in order to get that off, you're going to have your crank pulley. And basically four bolts hold that on, and it may seem seized on there, onto the crank. Let me get a flashlight down below. And what I did was wrapped on it quite a bit, and I took basically a punch where you can see I hit it right here a little bit on the cast iron part, rocked it back and forth and right in there, and beat on it and started breaking free, and you're able to pull that off. But once that's off, then you got this guy, which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 10 millimeter bolts. Yeah, 2, 3, 4. And this thing will pop off and drop down from the bottom. And once you got all that done, then you have access to everything down below. So what I'm going to do is, right now I don't have anything marked for the timing, and I'm going to replace the pulleys and stuff like that. This here is my old timing belt. What happened with this car was that actually was still on there, but that got stripped out. I don't know if I have it anymore, but the balancer belt broke in half, and what that did was, of course, the motor died. But this right here is the crankshaft position sensor, the old one, and I'll show you where that goes and stuff. But there's a new one. It broke that apart, which of course lost my spark, and so I'm gonna have to replace all them belts. And I got the kit. I don't know how much it was, but it wasn't too bad, like 80 or 120 some bucks. You got some pulleys, new pulleys to put on, or tensioners and whatnot, and then of course 2 new belts. So what I'm going to do is get all that on, and there's a little bit more you need to know how to take apart, but one, I suppose I should cover that, is these cars have a hydraulic tensioner, and taking that off is just 2 bolts. That's up in there, but what I did was broke that tensioner there free, and then this just come off. But now this this piston is pulled out when you take it off, and there's a little hole in there, and then a hole through the housing. And what you do is put that in a vise, and you go real slow, turn like a quarter turn and wait, and then turn a quarter turn and wait. Make sure them are lined up, and you keep getting it in until you can take a small nail or something and put it through that hole. So now when you put this back on and you have everything ready, you pull that pin. So that's the steps of just basically taking everything off. Well, I think what I'm going to do is clean it all up and mark up my timing, put the belts on, and then I'll show you from there where the timing marks and stuff are. One thing I guess I'm going to, before I start putting other stuff back on, is take your timing chain or your timing pulley, and there's a little notch right there. You'll see it. It's kind of engraved in the side of that gear. And then right there at the top is a notch. Now that's your, I got them marked with the yellow paint. That's your number one position, top dead center. Put that there. That'd be your, I'm sure your valves are all shut. And when you're putting on that balancer right here, the balancer belt, that's got to go on first. You have your crankshaft position sensor. Basically, it's I don't know what you'd want to call it, just a plate. And when them rotate around, let me get that little light. When them rotate around, which there's where the sensor goes, it reads off them. And see that yellow line mark right there? That's for the crankshaft top dead center. And I didn't paint it yet, but I will. There's a little mark below that bolt, the little tab, and that's for number one. But anyways, to get that belt on without pulling this whole damn crank bolt out, which I've heard is a bitch, you can rotate this clockwise, start at the top, and you can fit that belt in behind there, and then as you can see down along the bottom, you fit it in. Then you don't have to take that out. I got that idler out now. I'm gonna go start getting all that hooked up. All right, I got the balancer shaft belt on. Put the new idler on. Now it says you're supposed to only have about 1/3 of an inch of play in your belt. And how you check that is just use your hand and seems pretty good. And this, of course, is an eccentric pulley. You can put a screwdriver in here and pry it when it's loose, push that up, and then tighten it down. Now, putting that on, I should cover that. There is your top dead center timing mark on the crank, and then that little tab, you have that there. And you have to make sure that this balancer shaft, there's the markings for that. Once you have that pulley on, spin it over once or twice and make sure that they stay lined up. And I got the crankshaft sensor positioner on and spun it over, and this plate doesn't seem to be hitting. I had a little problems with that. That must have got bent up a little, but everything's looking good so far. All right, the next step is you got your basically your oil pump gear. You have timing marks on there, which there's for the pump, and there's the little triangle on the block that it would be basically top dead center. Now that can be one of two ways, and you have to you can have it like that. If you were to spin it one revolution, there is a counterweight up inside the engine block that will not be positioned right. And how you tell that's positioned right is, I'm going to try to get the flashlight in there, but there's this little bolt is under the exhaust manifold, and I took it off trying to get in there. That hole, what you see right there, is where that bolt come out. So get a general idea. It's kind of hard to get to, but not too bad. Now you need a tool, basically a little screwdriver. What I did is took an old one and ground the end off, and you can't cut through them with a hacksaw because it's chrome, but you want it about that long, about 2.5 inches long, and this has got to be fairly short here. Actually, before I put it in, I want to point out, you want to make damn sure that that will not fall into your crankcase, because you're going to have a hell of a mess trying to get that back out. But anyway, so make sure it's solid on the end and there's no way it can collapse in there. That screwdriver that I made did go in there all the way, and then what I got is I just compressed a hose clamp, pressing against there, kind of like a spring to hold that in. Now if your counterbalance on the crank or the oil pump was 180 degrees, you know, it spun in the wrong direction, what it would do would be get a brighter light. What it would end up doing would, you wouldn't be able to get that screwdriver in, and only get it in about 1 inch. It would hit that. Now it went in, so I knew I had it positioned right, but now you should be able to turn this a little bit, and it's going up and hitting the, you can feel it hitting the screwdriver, so you know that is positioned right. I don't know if you'll be able to read this or not, but that's what I was talking about. There's that counterweight, and there's the plug, and there's a screwdriver. You put it in, and that counterweight, when I turned it, it just went up and it hit there, but kind of gives you an idea. Okay, one thing I want to quick do is show a little tool you'll need to build is for this here. This is the tensioner for the timing belt itself, which is right down there. When you put your timing belt on, that tensioner right there is got 2 small holes, and them got a face at the bottom. And what I did, I left this in there just to show it. I'm sorry, it ain't a tensioner, just a idler pulley itself. But that pulley, you got to have a wire. I used a welding rod and broke the stuff off from it and heated up and bent it in there. You poke that in, and then you take a 14mm socket. You need to keep them facing down for proper tension, them 2 holes, so when you turn it, it wants to spin counterclockwise. But I can take it off now. I do have the bolt tight, but them are facing down, and this here's the tensioner. The pin's in it, and I got to put another bolt in it and slide that up on, but I'll go through the steps once I get that done. All right, I just put the hydraulic tensioner in, got it bolted down, and I pulled that pin so it has tension. Now you need to wait approximately 15 minutes, and then I'm going to rotate the crankshaft 2 revolutions and then check it. There should be about a 4mm, they say, a gap in there. We'll look at it and see what's going on, but in the meantime, what I did was, I'll show you, is I put that plug back in, pulled that screwdriver out, and put the plug back in. Make sure you do that. Heaven forbid. Now I'm going to hook up the electrical to the connector to the crankshaft sensor, and go from there. All right, I waited to 15 minutes and that for that tensioner. Adjustment seems good. Now make sure all the timing marks are lined up, cams lined up good. The crank is lined up real good. The oil or the gear for the oil pumps, timing marks are lined up good. And then cam for the counterbalance is lined up. So tensioner's on and tight. Crankshaft sensor is in. One thing I can do is push that in quick, the retainer things, and got that hooked up. What I'm going to do is do a quick dry run. I got that plug in down there and hook the motor mount back up. So, because I'm going to try to basically dry fire it before I put everything else together and see what happens. Alright, I got all the tools out of the way. Everything is looks like it's ready to go to test fire it. Alright, here we go. Look at that. Okay, everything come out real good. The car is seems to be running real good. I made sure everything was good and tight, and hopefully it'll this video will help people out. I do know I made some errors after I was looking at the video. A couple spots in there, maybe I'll highlight it, but just minor ones. It's no big deal. Where I said maybe one bolt and there was two. Other than that, it was all worked out pretty good.